Well, we're here with a rarity on this secondary ENT channel here. You know, I'm pretty sure I reviewed the Royal Rumble 2023, I think. It would have been, because it would have been after the War Games 2 years ago, because it was the Sammy turn. And I think maybe I did a WrestleMania video, and I've done some other wrestling videos, and then I stopped making videos for a little while because I was wrestling elsewhere. Can you believe that? But anyway, we're here to talk about Survivor Series 2024. Isn't this crazy? It is the first WWE event I watched since SummerSlam, I believe. I miss Bad Blood. Yes, I hear it was good. I don't watch Raw at all. I don't watch SmackDown at all. I vaguely keep up with clips on Twitter. I haven't watched an AEW something since I don't know when. I think I didn't even watch All In. I didn't watch the most recent one. What was the last one I watched? I watched Forbidden Door last year. No, I'm pretty sure I watched everything up until the beginning of the year. No, it would have been when I left in September. That's when I would have stopped. It literally is. But anyway, I've been off the wrestling stuff, but I know everything. I'm a genius. And I've got notes for this event because as I was watching it, I've got like a cousin I talked to about wrestling, and I was like, I've got like 7 different things I want to say at the moment. And I'm like, I thought I had an outlet for saying things I like to say. So I was like, fuck it, I'll just make a stream/secondary ENT video about it. And so here we are. All the background bullshit, huh? I know Sergeant's probably out there watching. Mia might even watch this video. Maybe some others, I forget. Heath is sometimes a wrestling person. Oh, and coming up soon, me and Alita E here on this very channel are going to be discussing the Vince McMahon documentary. Alita E knows basically nothing about wrestling. He watched it for like 2 weeks when he was a kid or something. He liked King Booker because it was around that time, like 2006 it would have been, or early 2007. And he's like, he says he loves Vince McMahon, which I try to tell him is not very good in this climate. And then he said he was going to defend Vince McMahon without knowing any of this, so don't attack Alita Rhea, right? He's just saying things because he thinks it's like a hot take. He doesn't know how hot of a take it is. But we'll reconvene when we talk about it in an upcoming video. We might be recording that tomorrow, who knows. So yeah, stick around for that, because that'll be much interesting, and we'll get Alita Rhea's little normie perspective on things he doesn't know anything about. Is he going to have anything to say? Who knows? But anyway, I've got some notes here I'm going to read through. So we had 5 matches on this card. I was shocked. I thought there was 4, and then the Gunther and Damian Priest thing popped up, and I was like, oh yeah, I've seen clips about that on Twitter. I would have assumed they'd save that for a different pay-per-view. But instead it was on this one. But we're not talking about that yet, because we're going to talk about things in order, because the one that I had the most to say about was the women's... I put chamber match, isn't that funny? The women's War Games match. I think towards the end, it got okay. The multi-women big spot matches, like Money in the Bank, these War Games matches, and the Royal Rumble matches, are always very, very bad, especially at the beginning. And usually the finish will, like, let you forget about the whole match. Because this match was terrible at the beginning. There was just missed timings. There was botches. I don't know. It's always the case where I think a lot of the girls especially come through the NXT system. And a part of me just thinks it's like a bad system. Where like they don't learn... I'm going to sound like a real wrestler right now. Where they don't learn any like instincts, and they have no improvisational skills. Where it's like they only know the spots, they know how they're going to get there, but everything in between is just like terrible. Because at the beginning, like they missed something off this top. It was Bayley and Nia. And a lot of people are just going to blame Nia for it, but I don't think that's true. And they missed something at the very beginning. And then Bayley's like trying to indicate to Nia very obviously to like to run the ropes. And she's just not doing it, and she's not realizing, and then she walks forward and takes a forward step back, and then Bayley just like throws it down and then punches her once, and it's just like, oh, the crowd, like, at least start off with something. Like, what are we doing here? And it was like a really bad, like, I think Candice LeRae came in next, and even she couldn't save it, and then there was just other things, and it's very clear that, like, now these War Games matches are also bad for this, because most of the first like 30 minutes of the match is just filling time while people come in. Like, people will come in hot, and then like it'll die off, and the heels will just beat them up, and then the next person in, and then rinse and repeat. And like, because it's like 3-minute intervals, it's like hype for the entrance and then whatever. So the match itself works and maintains excitement for the whole way. But the in-betweens, you can just tell the difference between like the men's and the women's match, where the men's in-betweens are just so much better. And And historically, with especially the WWE main roster women's division, there's a thing people always say is that the gap between the girls that are really good and the gap between the girls at the bottom is like a chasm, and it's hard to actually carry people in wrestling matches. So the like Bayley has been around for like 10 years. She's had a million great matches. Though not very many without Sasha Banks. But even she is so like awkward in there with Nia, who she's wrestled a million times. It's just there's like something fundamentally wrong with like the system here, and I feel like I'm gonna sound like a crazy person. I feel like, especially in the WWE main roster, the vibe I get is that it's very like cheerful, and like I don't know if anybody's talking to the girls after these big matches, where like the beginnings are always terrible and being like, well, girls, maybe we should show some like urgency here, and like maybe we should not just ponder around the ring, and maybe we should not like maybe we should work on in-betweens where it's just like, oh, stomp, punch, kick, throw to corner, do a jumping fucking sting splash in the corner. It's like, just do something so it's not awkward. But just very bad towards the beginning. And then there was this moment, I think it was right, no, it was probably it was after Rhea came in but before Liv came in, where like, and they did this spot in both matches, which is also annoying. The War Games concept having two of them, I feel like I've always defended it in my head, but for this time it was like the straw that broke the camel's back, because they do the same spots in both, and it's like, I know, this is a whole separate conversation that you have to have in wrestling, and everybody's going to have a different line, but like, the suspension of disbelief can only go so far, to the point where like, oh, every year let's have the stare down spot. And then like they did this spot, and it was really good in both. Though I think it was better in the women's because they missed like a camera cut in the men's one, where it was like everybody just hits a move on each other. But in the women's one, I think it starts with somebody hitting them with the fucking toilet seat they had in there, and then that broke, and that made a big noise. This is a fucking problem. You just have to make noises, and the girls never do. Like with their bumps, sometimes they lack noise, and with their hits, sometimes they lack noise, and it's just ugh. But they'll do the same. So they did this spot, and like everybody ran in and did a move on each other. It was just like a bunch of like, and then I think in the middle was Bianca doing a hair thingy, and it made a really loud noise, and the crowd just went insane. I think before this they were already chanting "This is awesome," which was very funny because the match was terrible up until that point. But you know, modern WWE crowds, they'll chant "This is awesome" just constantly. So anyway, I've kind of jumped ahead here, but it is definitely a thing. And I feel like people talk about it, but nobody ever cares, and it's always forgotten how bad and sloppy the girls' matches are at the beginning of things a lot. And it's usually, now, I don't know, I'm not watching Raw every week, but from what I remember when I was watching Raw every week, singles matches are never like this. There is some sloppiness sometimes, but it's like clear that they know and they're trained to do singles matches a lot. I feel like it has to be in these big matches. They're thinking too much. It's on a big stage. They're trying to memorize the spots and stuff like that. And it's just the in-between stuff that suffers a lot. And it really feels, I remember, it feels like I'm a raging sexist right now, but I remember when, I think it was in AEW, there's no other place this could have been. It was the Britt Baker Thunder Rosa cage match they had, the blow off where Thunder Rosa won, I think. Can you believe that happened? Like, we've just forgotten about that. AEW was like that. It's crazy. That match, and they also, when they would do those tag team matches with Anna Jay and Ty Conti, where they would do the death matches, I think they did it twice. It was so obvious that those matches were just spot, and not in a spot fest in a way like, because everything I'm saying, a moron would say, like, and it's like a generic thing that, like, a certain segment of wrestling fans would say. But it's actually true in these matches, where it feels like spot, then moving into the next spot. But they don't really know how to move into the next spot, so they will kind of awkwardly just shove each other into the corner where they have to climb up the ropes to do the next spot. And it's just like, all the in-between stuff is so terrible. And I think part of it, and especially in AEW, it's Britt Baker being fast-tracked into main events without really knowing how to do, like, a 15-minute, like, normal match. I don't know. It's just a constant thing. And I think the men do have because the men can just take a bump and it's going to make a big noise and it sort of resets things. There was even the big botch later in the men's War Games match where Jacob Fatu missed it, and then he did the clever thing where he really sold his leg. But even then, like right afterwards, somebody took a bump and it's like move on as quickly as possible, do something big to divert the attention. Io actually did it in this match where she missed the diving thing, where she was going to dive a senton powerbomb Candice LeRae, I think, and she missed it. But immediately after, she like showtated her in the ass and then like did a suplex or something. She did something. Oh no, she knocked her down and then did a missile drop kick, and the crowd still came. I mean, comes for her, not like came as in a sex thing, chat. Shut up. I just got distracted because I looked down and Miller said something, so let's all read what Miller said. Have men ever fought women? Yes, very much in the olden days. They did do some recently, though. They've sort of broken back into that a little bit. And outside of the WWE, I don't think AEW has ever done an actual intergender match. There's even a category of match called an intergender match. Can you believe it? But a lot of like smaller wrestling companies will do it often. Has Vince McMahon ever fought Tony Khan? He has not. I can't believe Miller the Killer knows who Tony Khan is. This is big. But anyway, back to the War Games match, okay, everybody? Also, I hate the soy, it's time for War Games thing they say after the thingy. I already didn't like Samantha Irwin or whatever her name was. I thought she was not the best announcer. I thought she was overwrought and kind of cringy. And now they've got a new girl that just does exactly what she used to do, so that's no fun. Though I did see a Twitter clip that Lillian Garcia was back on Raw or something, so that's funny. But even she was kind of always bad, so anyway. My notes start at the very beginning, so I'm like, biggest pops were for Rhea, Io, and Tiffany. Tiffany Stratton is very over. She is... Like, it is because she's, like, very over-the-top and ditzy. And she's got big boobs and is blonde. Her stuff is okay. She's another girl where it's, like, the in-between stuff is probably pretty bad. And, she's very much an NXT girl. And, like, you can say the same about Rhea Ripley and Bianca, but they're just so much better that it's crazy. But Io got the big pop, and I think I see Twitter rumblings about this. I assume she is going to win the Royal Rumble, which would be cool. Who does she face? Who's the SmackDown one? Nia Jax. They got to get that belt off her. Maybe Io will do that. I don't know. That was my thought, because she always gets like the underground, like cool guy pop, rather than like the overwrought top guy pop, which Rhea gets. And it was so funny that Liv Morgan got no reaction. And, because I'm pretty sure she gets booed every Raw, but it's always because Dom is with her. So it's kind of interesting that it seems like Dom really is the one with the heat, and Liv Morgan is just kind of like a side piece almost. Which actually brings into the intergender stuff Miller was kind of talking about. Where a part of me, when thinking about this feud, has always been like, well, the playoff has to be like Dom versus Rhea at WrestleMania or something, right? But it looks like they're going to try and stretch this out to do Rhea and Liv at WrestleMania. I don't know if that means Rhea's going to win the Royal Rumble. Who won the Girls' Rumble last year? Bayley. But Rhea has won one, right? Because she threw Liv out at the end, I remember. I don't know if they would have a win too. But anyway. I just have the match was dreadful until Rhea. But that sounds like Rhea saved it when she really didn't. And then there was some urgency. Nothing feels dangerous. This is another big thing where they do the thing where, the idiot runs down to the thing. It all feels so formal, and WWE is always going to have problems with this, where everything feels very overproduced. It's a lot less bad in the Triple H era, but it's just because it's slightly different. Like, the announcing is slightly less bad, but it's just engineered differently to the point where it's still kind of, I wouldn't say bad, but kind of okay. But like, the girl runs down and then she checks. And every time these idiots were looking for a weapon, it was in the wrong spot and it was like bad. Like, how did they not coordinate this beforehand? But they're running down to the ring and they find a weapon. It's just like, here comes the stupid weapon stuff. And it's like, remember when they used to say, man, a Hell in a Cell match is going to end this guy's career? And I feel like they still do, like, hype that up for, like, War Games. It's the most dangerous structure, whatever they'll say. And it's like, funny time with the silly weapons and, like, the glow sticks and stuff. And everyone's doing the weapons and it's the same spots every time and something like that. It's just like The good spot in this match was definitely the Money in the Bank tease. It is a thing that they've been doing a lot recently, where especially with the Triple H stuff, they do try to like. Vince would just do the same thing every year. Like every few years, he would just do the same idea in like a Royal Rumble match for something that he thought was different, or in a Money in the Bank or something. But it was like because he thought the audience had the memory of a goldfish, and either maybe he was losing it and he had just forgotten he had done all these ideas before, but it was like the same thing. All like at least now they're trying to do different things in the rules of like things people have speculated about, like could happen. Like, there's still a few they haven't done, like having, like, number 30 come out in the Rumble and win it instantly because 29 and 28 were the last to win and they threw each other out. And then you find out who won with the... Like, that could be a cool thing, though it kind of undercuts the Rumble stuff. But they've done a bunch of Rumble ideas and they've done a bunch of Money in the Bank ideas. It's funny that they wasted this one without actually doing it. Part of it did feel hokey, though, because I realized what they were doing before they did it, and I was like, oh, okay... So I was kind of glad it didn't come off in the end. But then there is only so many unique ways you could do something. They're at least thinking about it nowadays, which is better. The weapons are like funny, bad, botch spots with Nia. Oh yeah, the Nia chair shot was a funny thing. People are doing the meme about how it's like the Hogan chair shot in the WCW clip. Everything is hokey and choreographed, I've written down. That's something an idiot would say. Crowd just there for the big spots. The wrestling audience is terrible. That's a whole nother conversation. I don't know if I want to go into the modern wrestling audiences thing. One day I'll make a scripted video about it. Some good stuff towards the end. The Money in the Bank stuff. Being innovative, which is something I just went over. A big thing that's comes up now. Hold on. We've got the great Mill of the Killer. He's saying some more things. Does the audience leave and grab a snack when the women's match is on? No, but definitely about 10 years ago. Oh my god, it might be. No, it definitely about 10 years ago. It definitely was the joke that the women's match was the piss break match. So that's pretty cool. But probably not anymore. Has the first entrance to the Rumble ever won? It really pisses me off when people win just because they come out in towards the end. Yes, a bunch of times. A lot of times, actually. That was a Vince thing that started to get old, where it was like, oh, what if number one wins? And it's like, oh, yeah, Vince, we remember. The NXT-ification of WWE. Now, this was a big fear when Triple H took over, and especially towards the beginning it felt this way, because there was everything in NXT, like, made sense, which was, like, why everybody loved NXT, like, in the 2010s. Because the main roster was just so terrible, and I want to use the R word, but I'm not going to. Mia might be watching this. It was just so terrible and devoid of, and everything would change week to week, and it was just like punishing to be paying attention to any of this fucking nonsense. And NXT did pay attention to stuff, but it was a lot simpler. But in that, things never felt spur of the moment in NXT in a way where some of the best WWE moments of like that terrible period would, and also like nothing ever felt too grand. Like if you look in retrospect, the NXT title like picture after like the Sami Zayn Kevin Owens stuff very early in NXT was, I'm talking about NXT like it's over because in my head it is, was fucking absolutely terrible. Like, the Finn Balor stuff was always terrible. It was always a boring match. Then it went into, like, the Samoa Joe stuff. The matches were always uninteresting. It was never the best match on the show. It was always, like, predictable. It was always way too long. It was, like, there's, like, 3 Shinsuke Nakamura, Bobby Roode main events that are all bad. And there's, like, Bobby Roode, Hideo Itami ones, I think. And it's just, like, it's all bad. Nobody really talks about that. And another problem with NXT was always, like, somebody would win the title and it would be like, oh, now we're just waiting. Or they would lose it, and then it would just be us waiting for them to go to the main roster. And then it would be like, oh, wait, they don't want them on the main roster yet, so that we'll just have them win them again, and then the other guy will win it back. And they did that with, like, Finn and Joe a bunch, and Johnny Gargano did that a bunch. The fear in bringing that to WWE, because obviously this is the Triple H influence on NXT and now into WWE, they really have maintained a grandness that NXT never had, whether it be with the Bloodline stuff or even like a lot of the CM Punk stuff, which is very good. I still think it gets in the way where NXT was always like the feud has to last to the next takeover, and there's like no blowing it off beforehand. And now with WWE, it feels like these feuds are going on so long, and it's like it's almost predictable in a sense to where it's boring. Like under Vince, we wouldn't know a single Mania match at this point. Like we wouldn't even like whoever was champion now, it's going to change 3 times before the Rumble even. So like, don't even bother planning out that far ahead. And it sort of made like that February period like really interesting. Like the Rumble's over, now we're going to start the Mania feuds or start trying to make them. There were some Manias where we had like 5 matches like 3 weeks out, and then the rest of them would just sort of happen. We've almost got the opposite problem now where everything is so planned out, where it's like, well, now we're just sort of buying time for Liv and Rhea to get to probably Mania, and the same thing with the Finn Balor stuff, and like, sometimes they find creative ways, like creatively diverting into Walter for both Balor and Priest, because I assume the next one, and that's why Gunther kicked him at the end, was like, oh, Finn will probably challenge him at the next pay-per-view, and then Damian can cost him, and then they can both be in the Rumble, and they'll both be in the Elimination Chamber, and then WrestleMania they can have their blow-off match. But it's just like, we saw this with the Edge Judgment Day Finn feud, and it's just like, oh, it's just so long, and like there's going to be an injury angle where Priest gets like a month off, and then blah, blah, blah. It's just like, what if like all of these feuds just were paid off like at Survivor Series or at the next pay-per-view? Like, I feel like all the in-between pay-per-views always feel like in-between pay-per-views. Like, the main event for the last one, the Punk stuff was good because that did blow off. But that's because they kind of got to SummerSlam and realized they had more legs. That was one that, like, was good and didn't feel like it was going on forever. These other ones, I'm not so sure. I feel like watching Raw would kind of be boring, where it's like, oh, Liv and... What hijinks? Is Liv Morgan going to get into it to avoid Rhea Ripley? My goodness. So there's almost an opposite sort of effect here, and I think it sort of infects all this. And these War Games matches are sort of another thing of like an NXT bad thing, where it's like, it is just a lot of people thrown into matches, and then they try hard to make it make sense, whereas with Vince they would just put them in there and be like, whatever, nobody cares. Instead, the trying almost makes it worse, and like it's still not like working. So like, why is Nia in this thing, and why like this War Games match was very much just it's the time we have to have a War Games match. Like there's these 5 girls don't have like a problem with each other. It's just Liv and Rhea having like the baby faces and the heels, which would be cool in like a normal Survivor Series 5-on-5 thing, but not really in the like War Games thing. So they probably shouldn't have had the girls do the War Games match. I don't know. The baseball bat thing was kind of funny. I don't know why you would ever even try that. You have to gimmick it more, where it like... Because it kind of made a noise the first time. Because how wrestling works, especially in American wrestling, is something has to make a noise for the crowd to register it. So Liv like goes to swing the bat, and the crowd goes, oh, she's swinging the bat. And then it hits Rhea, and it makes a slight noise, and so they react to it. And then she goes to hit her with it like 3 more times, and like it doesn't make any noise, and the crowd just goes, oh. It's like, this is why like wrestlers use chairs, because the chairs make a massive noise, and you don't even actually have to hit them. They can put their hands up. Like, obviously this isn't an actual bat she's hitting them with, but still, it's like, just like, use something else. Like, it's stupid. Anyway, the conventions and Arcane I had written down here. This is a whole tangent on. I don't want to go down it now. Cool finish, but yeah, it kind of came out of nowhere and it was weird. Anyway, this match was just about Rhea and Liv. Crazy. That's that match, but I kind of talked about a lot of things in that. The next 3 matches I really don't have much to say about. It was funny because the next match was LA Knight and Shinsuke. And LA Knight, they like to put the pop thingy up, and then the pop tracker thing didn't go that much louder when LA Knight came out, which is kind of funny. His stuff is still over. I don't know if we've cooled off on LA Knight a little bit. But I mean, it has been going on for a little while now, and it's not exactly a character that has legs, I don't think, for too long. Probably a heel switch would do him good, but I don't know. He kept fucking things up, and the announcers tried to rope it into the storyline, which was clever. Like he dropped the belt at the beginning and something else, but whatever. I have written down it was an LA Knight and WWE Shinsuke match, so it was boring. I wrote that down before I watched the match and just assumed it would be true. The match was okay. There's another problem with noise, and it's always been a problem with Shinsuke and a lot of the Japanese guys or girls in WWE, is that the strikes just don't make noise in WWE for some reason. I don't know if it's if they're holding back, which was always a thing that people used to say about Kenta when he was in WWE. I don't know if it's just that the miking is different or that the crowd stuff is different, but like, it just doesn't sound as good when like they're doing the strikes. Like, I remember when I first saw Shinsuke in the Sami Zayn match, and they started doing those forearms. I wanted to kill myself. It was so terrible and cringy. And like, my secondhand cringe I got, even though nobody else was watching it with me. And then you watch like an Ishii exchange in New Japan, and like all of it hits and all of it has noise, and it just looks great, and it's like the best thing ever. And they just make whole matches out of the strikes and stuff like that. Because Shinsuke did this really awesome looking like backspin thingy, and I'm like, in a New Japan ring, that would have made the biggest noise, and the crowd would have gone, oh, and all the Japanese girls would have gone, LA Knight, like how they do, and it would have been super cute and stuff. And here it just made no noise, and the crowd just like reacted afterwards on the replay because it looked good, but it sounded terrible, so nobody reacted in the moment. It's just like, because you can take the same Ishii example and put it in AEW, and Ishii in AEW looks like shit as well, because it's like, his forearms just, they don't make any noise, and it's just, it makes it look bad, and then everybody on Twitter complains about how fake his forearms look and shit like that. It's just like, no, you just gotta see the real thing, bro. It's cool, I promise. But it's just, I don't know, either, like, somebody has to say, stop throwing the strikes, they look terrible, or they have to mic it different. Or they have to let him hit people harder. It's why a chop is, like, always better, because it's always going to make noise. But anyway. The big pop when Shinsuke won was cute. It's very much is the case, and this has slowly developed over like the last 10 years, is where the crowd, like, sort of undermining the matches are that the crowds are more there for the moments and the results. Like, Shinsuke hit his finish, and I don't think anybody thought it was going to be the finish, so they didn't react that much. But when the 3 hit, they did, like, have a massive pop. And then they sort of started to cheer Shinsuke. And it's clear that, like, they're cheering the title change and the fact that something happened on the show they paid to go to, more than they're, like, excited that Shinsuke won or that LA Knight lost. And that's kind of funny. I always think about, like, if an outsider was to look in and they were honestly going to inquire about why wrestling fans would, like, go to things, and, like, the actual answer being, like, not the matches, not the acting, because, you know, it's kind of bad, bro, but, like, I want to be there when the fake title changes hands, and, like, because that'll feel like I had some consequence. It's just, like, such a, like, funny, like, everything in wrestling is so fucking stupid when you actually think about it, and so much of it only just works in its own insular bubble. It's funny. Miller says, that's awesome. I assume to the Rumble stuff. Oh my god, what you said earlier. Can you imagine Mr. Satan or Buggy, the clown type character, winning the Royal Rumble because they came in last and everybody else is knocked out? The problem is that the Royal Rumble has riding consequences, and that the winner has to be in the big match at WrestleMania. They almost did that with a Buggy the Clown / Mr. Satan type character in the 2011 Royal Rumble when Santino Marella almost won. But they cucked out of it. He was like, he like slipped out of the ring under the bottom rope, and then, yeah, it was a whole thing. Anyway, that was that match. The IC title triple threat match ended up being pretty good, which is funny. My big question is, like, what do we do with Braun Breaker? Like, we've already beaten him a few times, which is good. The, like, undefeated thing is, like, so bad, and, like, AEW keeps falling into the trap of, like, when do we have the guy lose? And then everybody sort of builds up when the guy... It's, like, best to just beat people. And then, like, not do an undefeated streak unless it's, like, literally, like, 1997 Kane or something. It's especially worse with, like, Monster or Powerhouse guys. Like, I remember they kind of did it with Cody when he first came back, but that was fine. Like, it feels like he's sort of wasted away with the IC title stuff, but it's also, like, plays into, like, the formula that we've sort of gotten back to from, like, the 80s, where it's like, well, the guy's going to win the IC title, and then he'll go for the world title after he loses it. But, like, a world title seems too soon, and, like, it'll fuck things up, but, like, this IC stuff is really just matches, which I don't know if that's what they want him to do. It's not really, like, storyline stuff. Like, should he have, like, a feud with Cody and lose or something? Because, like, interesting. I know they're on different brands or whatever. But it's, like, it's kind of a conundrum right now with Braun Breaker. Because you don't really want him to, like, have it for, like, a year. Because then it's, like, just Gunther. But he's not going to have it for as long, so it'll be worse. And it's just, like, a kind of trapped thingy. Like, what's the Mania match? What are we doing here? What's going on? And also, you don't want to have it be like the young guy just beating up the old guy thing. Like, you could do him and Cena at Mania, I guess. But then it's just, like, Cena would have to win. What are you doing there? And whatever. There was a great near fall with Sheamus. Yes, the fake out with the ref pull out was really good. This is awesome. Chants are awful. I already talked about that. The last spear was great. Oh, yeah, the last spear was like, the crowd really bought in that if he hit the spear, it was over. And he did hit the spear, and it was over, and, like, I've never actually seen the crowd do that before, where they, like, give up before the 3 count has even happened. Like, it was actually a good moment. Like, it's clearly what they were going for, and they got exactly what they were going for, and it was very cute. They're still doing the Sheamus is eventually going to win the IC title thing, even though it's not from Gunther anymore, and I guess Braun Breaker works. We'll see what happens. Then we had Gunther versus Priest. I forgot this match was happening. Impromptu feud and how that's rare and beneficial. It does seem like this feud came out of nowhere and somebody had the bright idea, like, oh, to get the Finn and Damien feud a couple months down the road, we can have them intertwined with Gunther. And then the promos that I've only seen the clips, right, on Twitter, but they were really good from the putting the shoe sort of on the other foot, where Gunther is usually like the intimidating bad guy, but playing Priest off, and it makes Priest look really cool and makes it seem like he's gone to a different level, to the point where it's like, oh, maybe just put the fucking belt on him again. Which they ended up not doing. But yeah. They kind of had fire out of nothing, I have written down here. There was a cute finish with the Finn and the Gunther thing, and I think that's either going to end in Finn and Gunther, and then maybe Finn. You could do Finn, Gunther, and Priest in a triple threat at the Royal Rumble. And keep them both out of the Rumble. Though you can just have them eliminate each other in the Rumble or something. You know how this fucking shit always works. Anyway, last match, we had the men's War Games match. Can you believe Tama Tonga is in WWE? I can never get over it, and the fact that I haven't been following it much now that it's happened is, like, crazy to me. Tonga Loa is also there. We love him. I remember, CM Punk came out, it was funny, he slapped him or whatever, it was a good moment. Now, I saw the post-match photo before this match, but all I saw was, like, CM Punk in the middle posing, and then I scrolled past it really quick. And I'd convinced myself that he turned on them, and then he was, like, posing with Solo and stuff. And then I sort of fell in love with that idea, and I'm like, oh, CM Punk and Roman at Mania, and then Cody and The Rock at Mania, oh my god, what a great collection of matches. But they still have to be doing the CM Punk Seth stuff at Mania, right? There's no way we're putting Jonah and fucking Seth, dragging that shit out until WrestleMania, right? I feel like that's a Saturday night's main event payoff. What the fuck was I saying? CM Punk something. So it was funny that I tricked myself, but yeah, that would, like, undermine Solo as a character, and maybe it would be funny for them to give up on Solo because I don't know how much legs he had. Solo was really over when he was, like, the quiet, actually tough guy, but now that he's, like, the loudmouth, like, kind of chicken shit heel leader of the group, I really don't know where he goes, and I feel like he is just going to get undermined. Like, part of me thinks, like, this could be the peak of Solo, like, this match is, like, the peak of anything Solo will ever do in WWE or something like that. It's probably a little overestimating it. But what's probably going to happen is The Rock's going to come in, right? And then it will, like, undermine Solo and stuff like that. I don't know. There's also the Jacob Fatu, like, angle where everybody's just, like, more into him as sort of the Solo type character, and he's sort of become the character Solo was in the original Bloodline and shit like that. So, I don't know. Solo's in an interesting place here where they've sort of got to figure out what they're doing. Because, like, Solo's not going to be world champion or something. And him winning a mid-card belt is kind of like, what are we doing here? So I guess he just keeps feuding with Roman and becomes second in command to The Rock. I don't know. But if we're doing Rock and Cody at Mania, we're probably doing, like, Solo and Roman at Mania. But how does Solo get his heat back? He could just beat them all up, I guess. But I don't know what's going on. There's also the CM Punk favor. What's going on with that? Isn't that crazy? Oh, I'm fucking yawning, chat. Yawning. Wrestling puts me to sleep. I did have a thought to myself because Sammy came out first, and I was like, oh, the entrances will be interesting. Like Roman's probably gonna come out last, but when does Punk come out, etc., etc. So Sammy comes out first. Obviously, he's Canadian, big pop, etc., etc. They're not the biggest pop. Sammy is definitely like, will Sammy ever be as hot as he was at Elimination Chamber? Like, was that 3 years ago now or whatever? He's still over. He's a popular guy, but he very much feels like the fifth most popular guy, tied with Jimmy in this match, in this feud. It's definitely more about CM Punk, Roman, and Jay. But anyway, at some point, I think Punk came out, and I was like, oh, it's Roman and Jay. Like, wouldn't it be epic if Jay came out last? And he did, and that was cool to have him come out after Roman. It's like, oh, a signature on Jay, I guess, or like a stamp of approval on him. But then they kind of cucked out by having him start the match, so it was sort of like, oh, he just came out last because he was starting, ? And because he had to do his thing through the crowd, ? But, you know, they kind of did it. Who's complaining here? Then it happened, I have written down. Oh, then Jay came out, it happened. I also have written down, this is only possible in Triple H WWE. Everybody looking at the wrong spot for weapons. Poor Tonga Lower, I have written down. True, he's just... Every time I see him, I'm like, Tonga, don't fuck up, okay? Twitter will make fun of you. But he did alright in this match, I'm pretty sure. The match itself is whatever. They had some spots. The Tsunami spot was pretty cool. Then mirroring that with the J spot at the end was pretty cool. The Punk drama stuff, Solo not letting Tonga Loa go and then letting Jacob Fatu go and then mirroring that over that was all cute. And then they just all kind of beat up Solo at the end and everybody's friends. It was straightforward. Coming in, I would have bet all my money that Solo's group would win this somehow. Just to extend the feud and not fuck up Solo. But that's not what happened. And that's really everything there is to say in the match. Putting Punk in the match did very much make the match about Punk. And I don't know if that was the best move. It was certainly better than having the Seth inclusion. They really just should have done 4-on-4. Like, is anybody going to remember that the last one was 5-on-5 and, throw a hissy fit about it or something? But other than that, it was cool. I think thinking ahead to Mania is interesting too, because I feel like we have to do Cody and Rock, right? We set that up. If Rock is doing anything, that has to be the match. If he's not, then do you do the Randy match? That could be interesting. Do you do a Cena match? That could be interesting. Do you do a Roman rematch? If they do that, Roman's winning, and then it sort of cucks the whole Cody Mania journey thing. If they do ever do that match again in the main event of Mania, it has to be 4 years down the line. It'd be like if Tanahashi and Okada had another Tokyo Dome main event after the Wrestle Kingdom 10 one. It would be weird. Do you believe Okada is in AEW doing nothing? It's always funny to think about. He's been there for a year. It's crazy. What was I fucking saying? The Mania card. They still have to do Seth and Punk, right? That's a big match. Roman and Solo, but then if The Rock comes and gets involved in that, are you doing Rock and Roman instead? And then what's going on there? You got the Cena final match. Is that going to be with Gunther, or what's going on there? Finn and Damien we've got. Liv and Rhea it seems like we've got. Io versus maybe Tiffany. I guess that's a more interesting match than Nia, if Tiffany cashes in at some point. Though they've teased it so much at this point. They could do Rhea finally beats Liv for the belt at the next pay-per-view, then Stratton cashes in on her, takes the belt off of her, and then she doesn't get her championship rematch, and then you could do Liv and Rhea non-title. That could be a thing. I don't know. what the girl stuff looks like. Obviously, they're doing... This is another thought I had. They're probably doing Bianca and Jade again. But it's, like, lost all of its heat now that they've been, like, friends for a year. And Bianca has definitely cooled off. I wonder if she's, like, frustrated and mad about this. Because she really wasn't, like, top of the world. And then she got, like, undermined pretty heavily. And now, like, Rhea is clearly number one. And she's, like... I don't even know if she's number two at the moment. And it's just, like... Ugh, what's going on here? Like, Becky is still probably number two. And having Becky lose straight to Rhea is bad, because it kind of hurts Becky in the long term. I don't know. They've very much gone all in on Rhea, which, who can blame them? But there's other girls here, too, you know? What the hell even happens in the weekly shows if you can just skip them and watch the pay-per-views? Well, that's kind of always been the case, but, like, the setup for stuff, it usually happens there. But, that is a new Triple H-ism, is that, like, most of the big stuff does happen on this, and it does make it easier to just watch the stuff. But all the promos happen, and it's good, and going into, like, WrestleMania, it'll be less, but, like, usually this, post-Survivor Series into the Rumble, is, like, a very dead, like, TV thing. But they are switching to Netflix soon. They got their trillions and trillions of dollars to do that, and they might be allowed to swear. Isn't that cool? But yeah, I don't know. There is value. Like, if you like wrestling, bro, and sometimes stuff does happen on there. I'm kind of underestimating it. You might get a title change or a minor title change on a Raw or SmackDown. Finding out who's going to be in the big matches at the pay-per-views. They usually have, like, matches to determine that on the TV shows. All the cool promos and stuff. I feel like you definitely do get more out of this stuff. Like, the big events if you watch the week to week. Which definitely used to not be the case. There's a lot of little character details, and like the Bloodline all came back together, and that was all in the weekly TV shows. But I don't know, it just depends what you're trying to get out of it. And also, Miller, we don't call them pay-per-views anymore. We call them PLEs, Premium Live Events. Idiot. But let's do Royal Rumble predictions real quick. I guess Io is winning the women's one, or Rhea will to set up the live match. Or I thought of another interesting idea, because Bayley is completely cold again now. They could just have her win the Rumble again. That would be funny. The men's Rumble, I have no idea what match we're setting up. Like, literally, The Rock could come in at the end and win and set up the Cody match. Or what's the other match going to be? Cena can win it. He can join Stone Cold Steve Austin as a 3-time winner and challenge Gunther at WrestleMania. It'll just be so epic. But those are the two matches, so one of them has to win. I don't know, an unannounced Rock winning the Royal Rumble could be cool. And they would probably have him come in at like 27 or something, so he has to do like 10 minutes of wrestling. He could throw Roman out, because Roman will probably be in the Rumble again this year. Won't that just be the most interesting? You could do some crazy things in that Rumble match, because Cena will probably be in it, because it'll be his last Rumble. And so you could do Cena Rock spots. You could have Punk in there. You could do Rock Punk spots. You can have Roman in there. You can do Roman spots with all of them. There's other top stars, like Drew McIntyre has to come back, and all that stuff could be very interesting. How cute. Is The Rock going to be John Cena's final opponent as he retires? No, because John Cena's final thingy is, like, not at a big show, I'm pretty sure. So, The Rock will not be doing that. We're trying to see if The Rock is going to do another match. We don't know if he's doing multiple matches, so the Royal Rumble is like a cop-out. But he is like a board member or something now and has a stake in the company. So he might be doing more appearances, etc., etc. But just for your information, Miller, John Cena's final match is probably going to be against Randy Orton, of course, because that makes the most sense. So Rock/Cena and Io/Rhea are my Rumble predictions. I'll probably report back after the Rumble, and I'm probably not going to talk about any wrestling live events unless AEW does something or something crazy. Until then, because outside of talking with Alita, as we do for that Vince McMahon stuff. But anyway, that's it for this video, everybody. Those were my Survivor Series thoughts. See you next time. Support links in the description below. Thanks.